everybody, I'm Ebony Love of Quilt Possible. In this video, I want to talk to you about Quilt Block D, the finish multiples for the AccuQuilt Studio. This die has 3 of the D triangles on the die, which finish at, how do these finish at? I want to show you how to efficiently cut fabric on this die so that you can really make use of the scraps that are coming off of this die. I took the liberty of marking a registration line which is 1/4 of an inch away from the edge of the bottom of the triangle. And I've measured that space from 1/4 inch outside of the shape on each end, and I come up with 14.5 inches. So what I've done is I've taken a strip of fabric and I've cut that to 14.5 inches wide. I'm going to lay this fabric on the die so that my straight edge matches that straight line that's on my die. Again, I'm following the blades, not the board. And I'm going to fan fold my fabric back the other direction. And this fold is about 4 inches wide. And you'll see why we want to fan fold this and not cut it outright after it comes off of the cutter. So I'm fan folding this back one direction, and then I want to fan fold it back the other direction. So that I have, with this particular piece of fabric, I have 6 layers on the die. You should be able to get more layers if you're cutting from a full width of fabric. You want to make sure that with your 14.5 inches you are evenly spaced on both sides of the die, and you'll see why we need that extra fabric in a minute. So here's my die layered with 6 layers fan folded, and now all I need is my mat, and I'm going to run this through the studio cutter, and I'm going to do it at a slight angle, which I have room to do in the tray. And I'm going to run that through, so off it comes. And with the 6 layers times 3, I now have 18 of these triangles. Now I also have some waste on the side, and I don't want to unfold this right now. I just want to show you what this waste looks like coming off of the die. So those 3 triangles got cut, and I've got some big chunks over here and some big chunks over here. So what I want to do is cut these chunks apart, but I'm going to cut the chunks apart and leave some of that, some of those pieces connected on the side. So I'm just, or not connected, I just want to leave some extra room there. So I don't want to cut it like a triangle. I'm kind of cutting it into an odd-shaped piece, but I'll show you that in a second. Okay, so when I pull this off of the die, I get these triangles, and I've left some of this fabric from the scrap. So you can see my triangle is not pointed at the top, it's kind of squared off with some extra fabric, and I've got these little flaps on the end. And the reason that I did that is because if you leave that little bit of extra space at the top, it turns out that these triangles, which were on the side, are actually big enough to lay back on top of this die. They're not 1/4 inch bigger, so you cannot completely align this with the 1/4 inch line on the bottom of the die. But if you are really careful and you look at, and you're careful with aligning these triangles, and I'll show you this in a second, just let me get this aligned here. So if you're really careful and you lay that fabric over the die, it's really minuscule, but as long as you're covering the blades, and I can tell my blades are covered because I don't see my Sharpie lines. So as long as your blades are covered, these triangles are going to cut into perfect little shapes. So just to balance this out, I'm going to lay the other 3 triangles on the other side. And again, I'm not using my registration line. I'm really using the edge of the blade and just kind of wiggling that back just ever so slightly, because like I said, this is kind of a tiny margin, but you can cut it this way. So if you're careful with those scraps, you'll be able to cover your blades and run this back through the cutter. So I've got 3 triangles on this side and 3 on this side. And my studio turns from both directions, so I don't have to move the tray any. So I want you to see these really narrow scraps that come off the edge of this triangle. So hopefully you can see, but those are definitely not a 1/4 inch. They're pretty stringy, but they went all the way around, and so I know my triangles were cut all the way through. So again, I'm pulling off these little scraps, and there I just got 6 more triangles. So just by making efficient use of those scraps, I went from 18 of these to 24 just by using those scraps. So sometimes it seems like having that extra 1/2 inch might seem a little bit wasteful, but we really took advantage of just having that little bit of wiggle room by making those cuts, and I can use those scraps as well and get more triangles. So this technique should work with a lot of the multiples dies that you have, especially the ones that have corners cut off like that. So just play around with it a little bit, and you might see some additional opportunities where you can get more cut pieces out of a length of fabric. Happy quilting!